Hey, it's Sam, and I'm making this quick forecast about the upcoming new moon happening on February 10th, 2013 at 2:15 a.m. GMT. Now, it's in the sign of Capricorn, and you see the sun and moon are going to come together here around 27 degrees, 28 degrees of Capricorn. And it's in Dhanishta Nakshatra where they will come together. Now, the full moon is a time when sun and moon come together. They join, and it joins our mind and consciousness to a certain life lesson. What that means is that the sun is that part of us that is referred to as the one without a second, the Paramatman, the Supreme Self, that which is the non-embodied self, the non-localized self, like the pure soul within. And then the moon is what's called the Jiva Atman, or the feeling of being alive, that separate self that incarnates and that actually goes with us from lifetime to lifetime in Eastern energetics. So the sun is the Supreme Self, that's the one that we're trying to return to, that's beyond all of our identity and personality. And there's only one of them. Your sun and my sun are the same sun. There's just one. That's why when we look out into creation, we feel that we know that we're joined that supreme power. We are the supreme power. That's the power of the sun as the spiritual supreme self. But then we have an individual experience of that, which is the moon. And that's called the Jiva Atman. The Jiva is the separate being, that separate feeling of being alive. And it's that Jiva Atman, which is really the agency of our karma that goes with us from lifetime to lifetime, that we return to in the dream state, the astral body, it's often called. That self that travels from lifetime to lifetime, and that has this coherent experience of identity, which in this lifetime reaches back into our childhood and goes up until all of the changes that we've been through. Somehow, even though it seems like it was a whole different lifetime, we resonate, oh yeah, that's me. That little, child that grew up is actually me. So that sort of unbroken connection to self is the moon. Now, when those two things come together, it brings together our supreme self and our emotional feeling self. And they create a new sphere of evolution at that time. And so now we're going to have it, each year it happens in each of the different astrology signs. Last year we had the sun and moon also come together in Capricorn. This year we're having it come together in Capricorn. Now it happens every month. That's what a month is, when the moon comes around and joins the sun again. So we have the sun moon in Capricorn now, the sun moon conjunction, and this is a time when we really are challenged and compelled to a deeper sense of solitude, a deeper sense of peace, aside from the emotional connections that we get from family and from others. We need to be able to relax into that place of solitude that doesn't need connection necessarily, that is deeply committed to our own individual salvation. Often when we're alone, we feel lonely and we try to grasp and reach out for something, and because it feels painful, we often, because we don't know the nature of ourself and who we truly are, and the heart is not settled, we look outside of ourselves for something to feel anchored on, and other people's impression, oh, you're this person, oh yeah, you're a good person, and we say, okay, people like me, so okay, now I'm peaceful and calm and settled. But then what happens when they stop liking you, or that changes? There's also all this stress that is involved with that process, and we feel that stress, that pressure in Capricorn. That's what Capricorn is. It's making peace with this somewhat, stark reality of life, that we are alone. And I know that especially like in spiritual circles and in all of this, we like to say, oh, we're not alone. We're part of the world and part of the universe and part of the community. We're part of that when we incarnate, but deeper than that, we are alone. It's okay to be alone. We're not alone in the sense of lonely. We're alone in the sense that we are one. In the deepest, at the core of who we are, we're just that one entity. And we're trying to actually be able to sit in that with integrity as well. And that only comes through solitude, from being able to sit with who we are without the need to be validated by others and whatnot. There are times when we need to be validated by others, like the sign of Libra, the sign of Cancer, but Capricorn is the sign where we need to be able to rest in our nature with emotional peace. And literally that's the point, because the emotions generally are not peaceful. They're the waves on the surface of the mind. And so Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which brings silence, and it stops things and it slows them down, and tends to slow down all of that emotional wavering, mainly because we sense the truth that no matter how much people like us, or no matter how much we try to get that sort of thing from the world or from people, ultimately it's all going to be taken away. We're ultimately going to have to give it all up. And again, that can feel very painful. It's only painful because we're identifying ourselves with the stuff and the family and the people. And of course, in doing that, we also put a lot of pressure on them to, define us in a way that we like. And we also bring a lot of, pressure and difficulty into that situation the less we know ourselves. So it's a very interesting and organic process between being comfortable in our true nature, the willingness to commit to solitude, introspection, and how much we can actually be there for others. Because, like I say, often what happens is, even though it might sound selfish to just say, okay, I'm going to connect to my own solitude and be powerful in solitude. There's part of us in this modern age, in this, especially if you approach astrology or spirituality in a kind of new age sense, that says, oh, but we're not alone. We have family and we have community and we can't reject all that. It's not a rejection of it. It's sitting in a dignified place with our solitude. Because if we can't do that, then our interactions with other people are going to be filled with our needs and our pressure, and the pressure of them to make us feel good based on what they say about us. And there's all this kind of stuff if we haven't worked through our own capacity for solitude. So big stuff. Now, the ruler of Capricorn is Saturn, and this is supposed to be Saturn. You're probably sitting there the whole time going, he's got that wrong. So now I saw it. Saturn. So Saturn is exalted in Libra right now. So this brings about quite a dignified nature to this dark moon in Capricorn. When sun and moon come together, the moon is dark, which means you can't see it in the sky. So we become more illuminated and more powerful in that oneness at that time. For instance, when the moon is full, then we become full of our emotional state a lot more. But when the moon is dark, like it's going to be in the next couple of days, culminating in that new moon, we tend to not be as nailed down in that psychology. That tends to get less and less certain. And there's a lot of benefit to that, but it's also usually because we identify with our emotions and our feelings so much. The new moons can make us a little bit moody and depressed, because we're like, who am I again? Who is this identity again? What are my connections? What do I feel? And we have a lot invested in that. And the moon is really the agency of our attachments. That jiva, that separate self, is literally who we think we are most of the time. 99.9% of the time. We hardly ever live in full integrity with the sun. We're always identified and attached to something of the world. That whole thing is what the moon is about. So when the moon gets dark, that gets less certain. And in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, which is about the sort of shattering of our illusions through time, the sort of, this sort of maturity about life and the fact that we're alone and we need to let go of things when their time is due. We need to understand that, we don't take anything with us, and all those things that seem like harsh realities, it can be kind of heavy. So this dark moon in Capricorn, it can be kind of heavy, but the real benefit is it's compelling you to introspection, to greater introspection and solitude. Again, what typically happens is, the moon in Capricorn, I feel depressed. Why do we feel depressed? Well, because all that stuff that I was just talking about becomes apparent. We feel depressed because, I thought this was going to make me happy. I thought this was going to make me feel good. I thought this attachment that I have is the thing, and it's not. And we get kind of moody about it. So moon in Capricorn has that quality that we need to watch for, but that's the genesis of introspection. That's the catalyst for introspection. And when we feel that depression, it should compel us to go into the source and find, why can't I sit still? Why do I feel like I need to have some sort of external thing in order to feel good, or in order to feel connected? What am I disconnected from? Because anything that we're hoping is going to give us a feeling of inner connection that's outside is eventually going to bring some sort of suffering, if we're not congruent in our heart. So the fact that Saturn, the ruler, is exalted means that it's a really strong influence right now. That desire to be real and to get real around our interactions with others, our need to have good boundaries and to know which kind of relationships to commit to, which kind of relationships to let go of, and the awareness that we only have so much time and we need to concentrate it in the right areas. These things are big now anyway. A lot of willingness to be practical and realistic about life, and even though we have to let go of some things and a lot of illusions are getting shattered right now, we're at peace with it for the most part. Sometimes our illusions get shattered and we're kicking and screaming all the way. Now it's not so much that way because Saturn is in Libra. So this is a big kind of overview about the general weather right now, but also this concentrated moment of the new moon in Capricorn. Now it's in Dhanishta Nakshatra. The nakshatras are the stars in the sky in Vedic astrology, and Dhanishta the root word is dhan, which means wealth, and the symbol is the drum of Shiva called the mridangam, the drum of creation that Lord Shiva plays as he's dancing, the Tandava. Have you ever seen the picture of Shiva, the dancing Shiva? So it's a very creative nakshatra, and it's literally about wealth. It's literally about wealth and wealth creation, but not just monetary wealth, but also your highest value, your highest values. The deity is called the 8 Vasus, which are the powers through which we create. And there's a lot of alchemy involved with this nakshatra, because that's really what being creative is about. There's really nothing new, but we create things, there's nothing new, and yet everything is new. Every individual is a creative being, yet we don't really create anything that's completely new because we're functioning within the same parameters all the time. Yet we're always organizing it in a new and interesting way. So someone who is really creative takes what we all see and then organizes it and structures it in a way that's unique to them. So there's always a process of organization and alchemy and, this kind of regeneration of energy that comes through creativity. And this nakshatra really has a lot to do with that. Dhanishta, wealth, and it's very creative. It's also a good wealth-producing nakshatra. So this is a very good month to engage and start business ventures because of this nakshatra of Dhanishta. The other thing that makes it good is we have an aspect from Jupiter. Jupiter aspects these trinal houses, and he's putting an aspect on these planets as well. Jupiter is, Jupiter trines. When Jupiter gives his aspect across the trinal houses, he gives a boon. He confers grace. he especially rewards those and those efforts and those energies that bring about higher teaching and higher wisdom. Jupiter, the Sanskrit name is guru, so especially for teachers or business people that want to empower higher wisdom, this is a great new moon. And for people like myself who do teaching and stuff like that, it's an excellent new moon for starting a new cycle of creativity, contribution, aligned with that reckoning, that peaceful reckoning and that peaceful recognition, that honoring recognition of our solitude. Solitude is beautiful. I mean, it's just beautiful. If we're always, trying to feel seen and get attention, there's a real sort of, poverty about that. And there's nothing wrong with it, but if we can't sit still and if we can't connect to ourself in solitude, all of that other stuff at some point is just going to, lead us away from our center. And we need to have that balance, but of course, we just had the full moon in Cancer, which is about that. Now it's the new moon in Capricorn, where we need to balance that. We need to harmonize that, people love me, I have a family, I have connection. We need to balance that with, but I'm also willing to face and thrive in solitude. So cultivate a relationship with solitude this next month and really feel the power and beauty of that. And that's the highest wealth, Dhanishta. The highest wealth in life comes from self-knowledge. And also, it's a great wealth-producing nakshatra, and the aspect from Jupiter makes it even more auspicious for starting new endeavors, because the new moon is a time of like sperm meeting the egg. It's the beginning of a new cycle. So February 10th is the beginning of a new cycle, of a 30-day cycle of manifestation, commitment to growing our legacy, and also solitude at the same time. It's interesting how Capricorn models both, because Saturn is really about making a commitment to having a structure in our life. And we're either, often we're making a commitment to develop the structure at the expense of the inner being. So being able to do both, thrive in solitude to really check in with what's authentic in you, and from there you can really create the greatest structure, which is not just a sort of material structure, but something that supports the unfolding of your soul and consciousness and benefits the whole world at some point. But first we have to know what's in our heart. And this new moon in Capricorn really brings that lesson into our mind. The fact that Venus is also there makes it feel sweet. Venus gives some sweetness. So that solitude is not going to feel so harsh. Because Venus is like the goddess Lakshmi, or the comforting friend who is there, who makes it sweet for you. So it's not so difficult. So we'll leave it at that. And those who want to hear about how this will affect your astrology sign can also join my member site. For only £1, you can get access to this forecast for your astrology sign. So leave me some comments. Let me know how this resonates with you, and have a great day.